Okay, we're back developing our Firebase project, our demo project. We've been using that demo project to illustrate new APIs in Firebase. We'll continue using that project to illustrate new APIs in Firebase, or other APIs, or other things we could do in Firebase. Today, this morning, we'll be creating, so when I create a new user account, so let me just log out of here. So when I create a new user account, I want to go ahead and also create a new user in my database. On my Firestore, I want to create a new user. What does that mean? What is that going to look like? Currently, in our Firebase Firestore console, we have only one collection. We have an items collection, right? So what we also want to have all our authenticated users to be part of that Firestore database. What does that mean? We'll have a users collection as well. Currently, we have an items collection. Everybody has an items collection in the Firebase Firestore. So every time we create a new user, only a new user signs up to our app, we want to associate a new user in the database as well. Okay? That's where we headed. That's the objective of the morning. Let's go ahead and do so. Let's go to our Xcode project. First of all, let's do deletion. Let's delete all our items. Because right now, our items, let's delete our items because our IDs are not going to be associated with any current user that we have in our database. So to start from fresh, like you've been doing in your projects, you come across deleting your database often, correct? Right? That's the same thing in a company, whatever company you go work for, you'll have that same process as you build in the app or whatever you're doing. There'll be times where you're like, oh, I need this in the database. The easiest way is just to delete it or whatever it is, right? But obviously when your app is production ready, when it's on the App Store, that's different there, right? So what we could do with Firebase, we could have a different project to test. Everybody with me? Very similar to the labs that we have, what the lab do on Friday, for example. If I want to see what my post users look like, the simplest way is to create your own Firebase project, get your own Firebase Google plist, and then you could see your users. Everybody with me? Right? There's no harm in that. But for here, it's very easy. We could just delete our collections. We are not tied to it, so go ahead and delete your collections. So we have an empty database. Okay? The minute we delete it here, it's going to be gone as well, like if I log in here. And also what I want to delete, let's go to authentication, and let's delete all our users. Because those users do not have database accounts. Okay? Our objective is to have each user that's authenticated associate that user with a database user as well. Okay? That's the objective. Yes?
Do we delete the items collection?
We're deleting the items collection and we're deleting the authenticated users as well. We're deleting everything. We're starting from scratch. So just basically hover over it and delete account. And yes, there's no one delete everything. I'm sorry?
I said imagine having 8 users or...
Well, there's other things you could probably do. That's probably better. Okay, so here we have no users, we have no data. The storage is fine for now, that's okay. We're not gonna go over there. Let's go back to our app. And let's go to our login view controller. In Login View Controller, what we want to take a look at is continue login flow, sign in existing user, not that one. We want to create new user. So when I create a new user, everybody has access to create new user here in the continue login flow function. Yes? Cool. So where we want to start off is in that completion block here. I don't want to just navigate to my main view here. If it's successful, like the user was able to create an account, here I want to go ahead and also make sure that we're in the sign existing, not sign existing. Make sure we're in the create new user block. in the success block, we have a to-do here to do. That to-do will be create a database, create a database user, okay? So we'll create a database user, we'll remove this chunk of code here for now, remove this. Yes, question? In the login view controller, I'm in the continue login flow function. And I'm looking at the create new user block. Everybody's there, correct? All right, awesome.
Are we deleting the function too?
The function for navigate? No. We'll be doing it after we create a database user. But for now, we just delete the dispatch block there, and we have a to-do to do. All right, so we want to create a database user. What does that look like? We'll have a function, public, well, doesn't have to be, it's not public. Create database user. We'll create a database user.
Well, how come we took the navigate to main view? We don't navigate to
We'll navigate to main view after we've created the database user successfully. Okay? So success block, what are we returning here? We have some other things to take care of. Success, do we have anything returning here? Let's see. What type is V? V is, okay, awesome. So we have an off data result. So let's go ahead and say off data result here. And we'll be taking in an off data result of type off data result, which we don't have. We need to import Firebase off. Go ahead and import Firebase off. Import Firebase off. Make sure we import Firebase off in order to get access to the off data result object. So back down here again, let's do off data result, great. So here, what are we passing to our create database user? We are saying self create database user, and we'll pass in off data result. Okay. We could remove that break now. We're done with this. And I could move that to do, just create database user. Only from a new authenticated account. So make sure this block is in our create new user. Everybody with me? Only when we create a new user, right? We don't want to create a new database user every time somebody logs in. Only the first time they log in, the first time they create an account. Okay? So create database user, and here we'll take a step back and we'll go to our database service to create a function called create database user that will return us a completion, whether the user was created successfully or not. Okay, cool, good? All right, so let's navigate over to our database service. In our database service, we have a create item. That's all we have right now. Let's go ahead and create a new function, public function, and we'll call it create database user. And this takes in an off data result, type off data result. It returns some sort of completion, escaping. I'm in the database service. Mel, I'm in the database service. We're writing a new function called create database user. Takes a completion here, result type. For now, we'll just return a Boolean if it's successful and an error if it failed. I'm in the database service. We're in database service. We're writing a new function. So in database service, writing a new function called create database user. That database user will create, if it's not created yet, it's going to create a users collection. So at the end of the day, we'll have two collections. One is items, one is users. Why do we need users? To be able to see a particular user's items, right? Right now, we cannot do that, right? There's no way to do that right now. Any questions so far? Okay, so create database user, great. Let's go ahead and create a new, go up top, and then right after items collection here, let's create a new static. We'll call it users collection. So we're not making mistakes here when we're trying to access the collection. So throughout our project, we only have this literal name, one place. And the way we access it is via database service dot users collection or dot items collection. While we at it, we'll create also comments collection, and we'll call it comments. This is going to be a sub collection on the item, on an item document. So just to review, Firebase works like this. We have at the top level, what's the top level in our Firebase? Collection, followed by document, followed by collection, followed by document, Right? So at the top level, we have a collection. At the top level, when we go to our Firebase, what do we see? An items collection. Everybody with me? I click on items, I see documents. Those documents represent individual items. Right? On one of those items, I could have a sub-collection. In our case, our sub-collection will be called comments. Everybody with me so far? Right? So it's collection, document, collection, document, etc. That's the database hierarchy. Firebase, database, Firebase, Firestore hierarchy. So if we don't get to sub-collections today, that's fine. We'll get to it tomorrow. But at the end of the day, we have our comments collection already ready to go. It's not created yet, but we'll be accessing it via this constant. Any questions so far with the Firebase hierarchy, how it works, or how it's set up? Tanya, good? All right, so let's keep going down to our create database user here. We have our DB instance. We could say collection here. And the collection we create in is database service dot users collection. So again, I'm accessing collection first, right? What does DB represent? DB is the top reference of my database, right? Where do we get DB from? DB was from our private let function. Instead of saying Firebase Firestore everywhere, we encapsulated in this constant called DB, DB database. Everybody with me so far? Cool? So going back down, we say db.collection, and then we give it the name of the collection here. Okay. On the name of the collection now, I need to pass in some document. The document I'll pass in, do I have a user ID here? So, document, we need a string, or we could just use a random document ID, but we're not gonna use a random document ID. We'll be using the user ID. In that case, do we have user.user.user? Great. Is that optional here? We good here? Okay, perfect. So continuing on. So how do we create this? We say collection is the top level, followed by the document, and we give the document ID the same user ID. That way it's very easy to access that document. Everybody with me? Questions? Okay, so when we create it, we'll be accessing it via the user ID. Yes, go ahead.
All this is saying is that when this user creates something, it's going to a specific place, no?
All this is saying right now is when I create a new user, I'll have a new user document in my users collection.
Right.
And the users,
Items will go into that place.
not for now. Eventually we can associate like all the items the user put into that users collection, but for now we'll keep them separate.
So right now when we give the user their own database, what's happening in that database?
That happens, I could have a profile, I could have the profile photo, I could have an email, I could have a bio.
Which is what we have, but technically what we had was not.
It's only associated with one user, the current user.
Okay.
But now if I want to see somebody else, there's no way to do it.
Okay.
Very good. Everybody is getting Tiffany's question there, right? Because right now I could only see my own email, for example, right? But if I want to see somebody else's email, how do I do that right now? There's no way to do that right now with our current model, our current database schema. There's no way to see that. How can we see that? Every user has a user profile, for example, or a user item, a user document. Now I could populate that user document with anything I want. I could say users has a collection called items.
Okay.
And every time I create an item for that user, have an item in the sub-collection of users.
Is that similar to the actual Instagram app when you go to a user's page and you see their posts?
It's depending on what they modeled their database on, but that could be a similar model that they used, right? That way when I click on the user, I have all their items, but there's a job you have to do. You have to make sure the two of them are in sync. Right? You have to make sure that the items is in sync. So if somebody deletes it from the user's account, also delete it from the items account.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So there's more things to manage, but it's easier to grab that data. It will become very complicated the minute you get into your capstone projects, but this is the one thing you guys have to start thinking about. How do I diagram my database structure, right? Do I want to have users have items collection, right? Is it easier for me to just click on a user and get the items as well? Right, everybody with me? Okay, cool. So we have collection, we have document, and now we could go ahead and create or set data. Set data with completion handler. So set data with completion handler, and here we'll pass in the values we want to pass in. Okay, so we'll grab the email, we'll add a listed date. So we'll create our user with an email. The email will come from the off data result.user.email.email. Let's protect the email here. So if the user uses an email, so then they must have an email, but we'll just guard and get an email. So we'll get an email, There's no display name yet. We're not forcing them to have a display name, but we're forcing them to have an email. So we'll say email equal to offDataResult.user.email else return. So now we have an email. We're not doing optionals here anymore. We'll just say email. Next, we could have created date. Created date. Oh, I'm trying to format this nice. You guys should be able to format this better, but my screen right now is being presented. It's in presentation. It's in presentation mode. So you could format it such that they're lining up under each other. Everybody with me? Right? But mine is in presentation mode right now, so it's not gonna be able to format correctly or nicely like I want it to. So we'll create a timestamp. We'll give it a date object. The date object is the current date. Yes, if you had display name, you'd add it here, exactly. So now what else we'll add? We'll add in user ID. User ID is user.uid, not user of data result.user. We might have to unwrap this as well, because we don't want to pass in any optionals. Okay, so this is good. Any questions so far with where we are? Again, at this point, if you have a display name like Luba was saying, you could add in a display name here as well. Luba has 3 text fields, so when she creates a new user, she also has a display name that she's making the user enter. So she could add that display name as well here. Okay, so that's good for now. We could always update. We could always update that user object. So when your user goes to their profile view and they click on that update profile, I could send up the photo URL and update my user. Everybody with me? Right now we don't have a photo URL, right? Everybody with me? Right now we don't have a photo URL. I could add a photo URL at any point in my app. I could add a bio. I could add a display name. Right? I could update that document. Okay, cool. So this is good for now. We'll say if let error, Madame. So if let error will just return completion, failure, error. Else we'll just say completion, success, and we'll just return true. Okay. So this is our function create database user, and let's go ahead and complete. Let's go ahead and complete the view controller that calls this. So again, to reiterate, we have DB, which is the Firebase top level store collection. Where we writing that document to? We're writing it to the users collection. The document, here we're saying the document ID will be the same ID as the user ID. Everybody with me, right? Next, we say set data. Here we're passing a dictionary object. We say email is the key. The value is the email. Created date is the current date. And we have user ID as the user's ID. Okay? All right. Let us now go back to, now we are going back to our login view controller. Let's go to our login view controller. I'm in the login view controller now. Question? Yes.
Also, if you want comment or caption or pause,
You could add all that later, yeah.
you added to this diction.
The comment,
your account.
I wouldn't add it to
Your
the.
caption. Like if you want to sign with post.
Do you have a post collection, correct?
Like description or something?
Description of the user?
No, the post.
Then that doesn't belong in the users collection,
Okay.
right? If it's of a post, it goes to the post collection.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so here we in our create database user. Let's just say database service dot create database user. And here we pass in our auth data result and our completion, which is a result type. Question? Question? Mel, question? So here, let's just fix this. Let's just do a DB here. And then we'll have a DB instance. So DB, and let's create an instance right here. Private. I'm in the login view controller. I'm right below private var off session, and I'm creating a new instance of database. So we're not creating new instances everywhere. In login view controller. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Let's call it database. DB is fine, not really. Let's just call it database. Okay. We updated this variable here. All right, let's go back down and use it here. Database service. And let's use our switch. Where am I? I'm in the create database user in the login view controller.
And the variable.
The variable was called database service, yes.
And
Just write in database service. Yeah, and then open brackets, close brackets. So switch on result, case failure, let error. We in a view controller, so we could show an alert. Let's break any strong retain cycles. Dispatch, queue, main, async here, and we could show an alert here. Show alert. I'll just say account error, and I'll just pass in error, localized description. And next we have our success block. In our success block here, this is where we'll just navigate over to the navigate to main view. So here we'll say dispatch queue.main.async, and now we'll just say self navigate to main view. Right? So either we have an error or we were able to create a database user successfully, then we go ahead and we navigate to the main view. In that case, the tab bar controller. Okay? There's other things we could do there, like if, for example, the user, something went wrong, you could delete the account that was created earlier, right? There's always more we could do. But for now, success, we navigate over to the main view. The main view is our tab bar controller. Let's go ahead and run. Make sure that we call create database user. So make sure you call in create database user, and make sure that you call in new account creation, correct? All right. New account creation. Let's go ahead and run our app. Did we all sign out?
No.
We have a sign out button, correct?
Yes.
So sign out. Did you delete all your users?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And your items and stuff?
Yes.
All right. Do we all have the login page now on screen? So now we're not logging in, we have no accounts. We need to go ahead and create a new account.
Oh, but once we delete the user, we automatically have us signed out.
In your case, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When you run it, you have the login screen?
Gotta find it right
So I'm gonna create a new account here with a password. And so we're about to sign up a new user. Two things will happen. It's going to create an authenticated user in our authentication console, and it will create a database user in our database console. Everybody with me? Yes? Okay, so I'll go ahead and click on sign up. Right? We have no data. The data, what you saw earlier was cache. That was cache, that's what you saw, right? But we have no items here, so we have an empty table view. So at this point, we'll navigate back to our console. I'll go to my authentication area. I have a user. I'll go to my database area. And I have a user here, right? And if we see the user, the ID is the same as the user ID. So it's very easy to maneuver and manipulate that particular document at any time, okay?
Wait. Oh, you mean the user and you mean this and this are the same?
Yes.
They're not usually the same.
Yes, they're the same here. So we have easy access at any point. If we want to delete that account, if we want to access that account, whatever we want to do. Cool. So we have a created date here, we have the email, and we have a user ID. And keep in mind, we could always update more information. For example, when we go to the profile, the minute the user clicks on update profile, I could update the display name and the URL. Actually, let's go ahead and work on that. Did everybody users object work, users collection? All right, cool. So let's go to, let's go over to profile view controller. Navigate over to profile view controller. When the user clicks on, do we have an update? No, we don't have an update.
Update profile?
We have an update profile, but not in the database. So update profile button pressed, that happens. We capture the display name. We capture photo URL here. So at that point, we are successful. What function am I looking at? I'm looking at the update profile button pressed. Well, that's when the user clicks on the update profile button pressed. I'm in the profile view controller. Profile view controller, update profile button pressed. And we're looking now to see where's the best place to put our code. Because our code, what we're trying to do is, when I update my profile, I want to also update the fields for that user, right? That user document. Okay? Yes? Yes. Yes. The whole collection. Yeah. So right now we only have one collection, the users collection. Okay, so back in our success block, everything went well here. We have a URL, we have a display name. Great. So at that point, we could write a function. Where am I here? That function looks bigger than it is on my screen. Hopefully it's not that big. Okay, so I'm still in the function here. I want to write a new function. We don't want to have one big function doing everything. So we'll have a private function here. We'll call it update database user. Update the database user. What do we want? We want a display name, which is a string. And we want, what do we call it? Do we call it image URL or photo URL? Doesn't really matter. We'll call it user. We'll call it photo URL, also a string. So update database user with display name and photo URL. We'll write a database function for that, because what if we want to do it someplace else, right? So we don't want to tie our database code, too much of our database code in that one view controller. So we'll go over to our database service and write that function. Our function will look very similar here. I'll just copy this.
So that when you just call it and then just put it in there.
Exactly. So our database, let's go back to our database service. Click on our database service. Click on our database service. And we are creating a new function here. It takes in a display name, a photo URL, and it has a completion. I'm in the database service. I'm writing a new function here. Escaping result type. We have a result type. We'll just say again Boolean here, error. What are we updating? We're updating, I always forget this last angle bracket. We're updating the user database object. So we'll say db.collection. What collection are we after? We're after the database service dot users collection, yes? What document am I after here? Document, I need to pass a document here. So this is where it becomes very, very handy to have the user ID the same as the current user's ID. Everybody with me? Right now, I'm about to update my own user. I'm the current user. I want to update my object. How do I get access to my ID? Well, I have my ID, right? Everybody with me so far? Everybody with me so far? Because we need to pass in what document, like what document are you updating? I need to pass in an ID for that document. Yes? Okay? I have the collection, but I need to pass in a document ID. It happens that our document ID is the same as our user ID. So we could get our user ID, make sure we have a user here.
We don't need a string. Oh, it's supposed to be in a string. Right?
Yes, it's expecting a string. Yes, but we don't need that quote. I just put the quotes there for now. So we say auth.auth.current user else return. So now we have a user, and here I could say user.uid. That's crazy, man. 18 people from that nursing home. Collection, document. Okay, cool. So what we want to do now, we want to update data with completion. So now we want to update fields. We want to update, let me clean that up so we'll have no error. Now we want to update the document, right? So update data and the fields we want to pass in. What fields we want to pass in? Here we're creating 2 new fields because either the fields exist or they don't exist. Either way, it will have those 2 fields updated. Do we want photo URL or image URL? Do we care?
Well, we deleted the word we have before right here.
Well, we had no user to begin with.
Inside the item, we call it image URL.
Inside the item, that's fine. Just keep them consistent, I guess. We could say image URL. It's fine. So image URL, what is image URL? Well, image URL is the image URL that we got in here. You know what? Do photo URL for now. Because we have photo URL here. Then I start refactoring, and then we're like, oh, what's happening?
So wait, I do have a question though. So where we have our before when we were sending things up, and
That was item. That was item. That was item when we created an item.
Okay, so it's completely separate from.
We have 2 different collections here. We have an items collection where we create a new item to sell,
Right.
and we have a users collection where we create a new,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
right? Cool. So photo URL. What else we need? We have a display name, right? Display name is display name. And now we check for error. Oh man, my stuff is like, whenever I project, this does not look nice. 1 second, guys. Let me just try to clean that up. Okay, so either we have an error or not. If we do have an error, we'll just return a completion. Ooh. Completion. error, else we have success. Okay. So when the user clicks on that update button, at that point we'll send up a photo URL and we'll set up a display name. Yes? Cool. So those are the two parts we have. Are we okay to move back to the profile view controller? Okay. So moving back to the profile view controller, let's continue on our update database user here. So we'll say db.update build. Don't I not have a DB here? Oh, we have a database. Do we have a database thing? Profile view. Okay, so in profile view, let's create an instance of it right below storage here. So database service equal to database service. So here we have a database service, and we could go ahead and use it. Okay, so let's go ahead and use it now. Where am I? I'm back in my update user. I'm in the update database user in the profile view controller, and I'm saying database service dot update user display name and photo URL and result. Mel, we're in the profile view controller. We continue on our update database user. We wrote a database service function called update database user, same name, right? But this one returns as a completion handler, and it's now part of the database service. So we could use that same database service class in other projects. It's not tied to that view controller. Everybody with me so far, right? So we're trying to decouple as much as we can here. So here we have a result. So we say switch on the result, and case failure, let error, and case success. Let's set up our weak self here. We could just keep it one place because we're doing it already we're doing it one place already. Are we not doing that? Don't we not have an update alert already?
Profile did, yeah.
Yeah, so we should just probably keep it one place, like refactor it to have it one place. For now, let's just print stuff out, and we'll refactor it. I don't want to have multiple alerts happening here. We'll refactor that. Okay, so here I just print error. So update failed to update DB user, and we'll have an error. And here we'll refactor to have one place to have an alert. But for now, we'll just say successfully updated DB user.
So we don't need the
For now, we could take it out because there's a warning there. But yes, later we'll need it when we have our alert. So successfully updated DB user. Yeah, but for now, you could just remove it. But we'll fix it later when we refactor. Okay, so we have our update database user. We need to call it. Did we call it yet? Are we good here in the update database user function? We want to call it in that request block. Where we have the request happening, That's what we want to call this, because that's where we have the URL, and that's where we have the,
Shoulder.
yeah, so that's in that success block there. That's what we want to call that function. And then the shorelet, we'll take out the shorelet from there, put it in that function. Like the refactoring part of it. We'll refactor it together. But
You don't want a shoulder inside the update profile.
I'll just do it one place. You don't want to have it two places.
No, I know, there isn't one in the.
Oh, there's not one yet.
There is a show alert, but we have a show alert when you actually press the update profile button.
Okay.
But, like to say, oh, it's been, updated, but we don't have one in the function we just created.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like I'll take that, like ideally, let's take that alert out of the first one and have it here. So we have one alert.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but we'll do it after the fact. After we tested everything out, we'll just do that. Okay, so let's continue on here. Can we go up now? Okay, so back in our request block, our success block, this is where we get the URL back. This is where we get the URL back from our storage container. Yes, everybody? Right? So when we get the URL back, we get the display name back. Great, we success here. That's a big, I really want to take this into its own function. I'll put a to-do here, refactor this. But now we want to call our update database user, so self update database user. We have a display name and we have a URL. Dot, change it to a string. So we have a URL, but we need to convert that URL to a string. Remember, Firebase does not work with URLs. Firebase works with strings. Firebase knows strings. If you try to pass a URL to Firebase, your app will crash, saying type not accepted. The same way we have like one line here, we need to clean that up a little bit. There's too much happening here. So update database user, we pass in the display name, we pass in the photo URL. Great. Let's go ahead and test our app out. Run our app. Run our app. Then no items for sale. Go to profile. Let's edit our profile photo. Okay. Add a display name here. So we edited our profile photo and we edited our display name. And now we're about to click on update profile. So when we click on update profile, those two fields will get sent to our user document. So let's go ahead and click on update profile. Profile updated. Did we not? I didn't get a print statement. Oh, it's closed. How can I get a print statement and it's closed? Okay, so here it said successfully updated DB user. We all should have that if everything went correctly. So at this point, we'll now navigate over to our console. And look at that. Like that, we have a photo URL and we have a display name. Yes?
And if you don't have that?
There's many things that could be wrong, which I'll take a look at, or one of our IAs will take a look at, but we have to go through. As we see, there's so many steps we went through at some point, but we have error messages. So we should get error messages there with what particular item went wrong. Other people, how are we doing? Were we able to get our fields populated? Very good. So very good. This is a good place to take a breather and then come back. Yes? Bless you. So we'll stop here, we'll come back and continue. Cool. So let's run our app. Let's continue. Let's create An item. We just create random items, just create items. We go to sell item. I go to a category. And I create an item. I give it a price. I select an item from my photo library. And I sell it. It appears in my feed. Great. I'll log out. I'll create a new user. I'll create some password. I'll sign up. So here, if I go to my profile, this is my profile. I'm a new user. I go select some sort of profile photo. I give myself some sort of display name. I click on update profile. At this point, I've updated my database profile. If I go back to my Firebase console, any questions in particular here? I refresh, well, it automatically refreshed here. So now I have 2 users. Let's refresh again. I should have items collection as well. So here I have 2 users. I have Mac Addict and I have Shin. And in my items, I have 1 item so far, right? So everything works as we had before with our items collection. Everybody good here? Cool. So let's go back to our code. Let's go back to our code. So what's the next thing we want to do here with our app? We want to be able to delete. I want to be able to swipe to delete. I want to be able to delete an item. Any questions? Questions? So I want to be able to delete an item. Let's go to our items view controller, items feed view controller. In my items feed view controller, inside of the data source. Yeah, inside of our data source, we have number of rows, we have cell for row. We'll go ahead and do a commit style here. Item feed view controller. I'm outside of my cell for row items. Item feed view controller. I'm outside of my number of rows, number of items, cell for row of items. And here I'm creating commit. I'm typing in commit with style. So just type in commit and press enter. It will autocomplete for you with commit editing style. So this gives us the ability to swipe to delete. Everybody with me so far? That gives me the ability to swipe to delete. So here we'll say if editing style equal to delete, then perform deletion on item.
So in here, we would have to remove it from the table, remove it from the array, and then remove it from the collections.
In our case here, since we have a listener, we just have to move it from the database. And we are done. Yes, very good. Exactly. It's good. You have a listener, so it automatically updates. Interesting. Indeed.
That's good stuff, good stuff.
Do you want all users to delete?
I do not want all users to delete. There's 2 things we need to do. One, we need to make sure on the client side that if I am not the person who created the item, I cannot even swipe. And then we need to take it further. We need to go to our Firebase database rules and say only the person who created something could delete it. So there's 2 things there, right? But the client is not enough. You need to make sure on the database it's also secured. Everybody with me? That's where security rules come in. And then we'll change our security rules there such that the only person that could delete it is the person who created it. Okay? All right, so here, if editing style equal to delete, we want to delete the item. So what are we doing? Let's go to our database service. Go to database service class and write a function to delete. I mean the database service class, database service class, database service class, function, we call it delete. Delete item is an item. Okay, so we have our DB instance here. We say DB collection. What collection are we interested in? In our case, what collection are we interested in? Items collection. So database service items collection. On items collection, we could say delete. Not delete. We need the document. Document. In our case, we have the document is item ID is the document. So far, so good? Because here, this is very important. Whatever you delete in, you need to pass in that document ID of the thing. So you need to pass in, you need to pass in this document ID here, right? We have that document ID. It happens to be the item ID. We created that. We have that. Cool. So now we simply say delete with completion. Because we love completions. We want to know if something went wrong. And if we're in our database service class, we need to create some sort of completion handler to return the status of what happened. We'll say escape in here. We'll have our result type. Result. And here we'll simply say bool for everything went well, or an error. We had an error. So if let error equal to error, else completion, success, true. And here we say completion, failure, error. Cool? Good? All right, so we have our delete in our database service. Let's go back to our items feed view controller. I'm back at the items feed view controller. I'm in commit editing style protocol method here. We're about to perform our deletion. Okay, so we don't have one, right? So we need a database service. Let's go ahead and create a database service. We might change this to a singleton or a static at some point in this project, we'll see. So private, let database service equal to database service. Since we're not using any delegation on it, we could just change it to a static, so we're not writing instances of it here. But for now, we need an instance of database service to access the methods on it. So we have a database service, we go back down and we say database service dot delete item. Do I have an item? I don't have an item. How do I get an item? God let, really?
You have to guard? Also, then just the name of the items that index path.
Yeah. Nothing to guard, right? Items, we have an items array. We access the items array with the index path we have here, dot row. Right, so we have an index path here. This is how we access our items array. And at that point, we have an item that we passed over to our database service class to delete. We'll put a weak self here. And then we'll go ahead and we'll switch on our result type. Switch result, case failure, let error. We'll have a dispatch here showing some error message. Self show alert. And here we'll just pass in error.localize description. Okay, so everything went well here. Well, it didn't go well. We had an error. Next, we have a case of success. Am I outside of my block? Yes, I'm outside of my block here. Sorry. Okay, no, I'm good. Case success. We could show an alert, but for now, let's just print. I don't want to show alert here. Deleted successfully. We'll write one more function, or we'll implement one more protocol method. Again, tomorrow we'll take a look at security rules, but we did a bunch of stuff today. But for now, we'll have on the client side, meaning the app, we will we'll ensure that swipe to delete only works for the user who created the item. Right? Does that read well for you guys? Right? So only the user who created the item could swipe on that item to see the delete icon, to delete that item. Everybody with me so far? But that's not enough. That's not enough to only prevent accidental deletion on the client. We need to protect the database as well. We will do so using security rules. Okay, security rules is Firebase security mechanism to protect the client from doing accidental modifications to the database or to the storage, right? So we'll see what that looks like. So on the client, what are we going to do here? We'll implement can delete or can, what's the method called here? Can perform, no. Let me double check this method. Can edit. So can edit, type out can edit. type out can edit row. Can edit row is a protocol method. It returns a Boolean value. Is that action allowed? Very simple. Is that action allowed? Okay, so let's go ahead and get the user. So we'll say guard let user equal to off dot. Tell me I have off, please. No, we don't. Import Firebase off. Let's go ahead and import Firebase off here. Import Firebase authentication. So we have access to off here, and we'll say off.off dot current user else return. So now we have a current user. We'll need an item. We'll get an item from our items array. Index path.row. Here we try to validate, is this thing you're about to delete, is the seller ID, right? That's what we said, seller ID. Is the seller ID the same as the user ID? If it is, then return true. That's all we want to do here. So we have an item, we need to access the item. We say return. If we don't have a user, there's other problems there. Just return false. We should have a user if we're in this app. Okay, so continuing on, missing return here, return. Yes, missing return here. So now let's go ahead and see if that item ID is the same as the user ID. So if, I'm sorry? Yes, seller ID, sorry. So if item dot seller ID, right, that's what we have, right? The seller ID is the same ID of the user's ID. Everybody with me, right? So here we want to validate if the seller ID is not equal to the user ID. If it's not equal, return false. Else we could return true. What does that mean? If I return false, cannot swipe on row to delete. If I return true, that means able to swipe to delete item. And again, we have a to do here because we said this is not enough to protect our database, right? Everybody with me? Right? Because if you have an Android app, you have an iOS app, you have a web app, they're all talking to the same database. Okay? They're all talking to the same database. One developer protects it on the client side, the iOS developer. The Android developer forgot to protect it on the client side. And it accidentally deletes the wrong information on our database. So that's why we need to do it on the database side as well. That's like more powerful, right? Because even if the client is trying to do something, on the database, I'll get an error saying missing credentials. Because I do not have, I'm not authorized to delete that item. Everybody with me? So whatever we're doing here on the client side is not enough. We need to go to the security rules, which we'll do tomorrow. We'll kick off starting that tomorrow, so that it's both protected on the app side, the client side, and the server side, or the database side. Everybody with me? Cool? Awesome. The more protection, the better here. Cool. So let us continue. So we have this here, returns false here if they're not matching. If they are matching, returns true, returns false here. All right. Question? The seller ID is the authenticated ID, right? So let's go ahead and run our app. Try to have multiple sellers or multiple users on your table view. Right now, we only have one, but I have one, and I'm currently logged in as a different user. So I'll go ahead and create a new item. Electronics. I will go ahead and sell a MacBook. It happens to be $3,000. and it's an 18-inch MacBook. Doesn't exist. I sell it. So here we have two different users. Currently, I'm logged in as Mac Addict, and I have a Shin user as well. So I try to swipe on the Shin user, doesn't swipe. I try to swipe on the Mac Addict, it swipes. Are we able to test this? Right? Cool? So at this point, I could delete this item. Right? It's gone. Right? I run my app again. It persists because it's gone from the database. But I cannot delete something I did not create. Right? I cannot swipe on this. I cannot delete that. Okay? Everybody with me? Were we all able to test this? Not yet? Cool? All right, so we'll stop here, and then tomorrow we'll just continue on from like implementing security rules on that particular object. Okay? Cool? Awesome. So we'll stop here.